So I asked the question again because I don't think I was clear. How much must one endure until they are ready to get off the hamster wheel? And are we going to condemn those people who have decided to opt out of the program? Get out of the matrix? People are tired and they want a different way of being. And to be perfectly clear, it's not just African Americans. The way Americans is moving to the Caribbean, Mexico, Colombia, okay, Portugal, and those of us who are of African descent, we really want to come back to Africa. Welcome to BLAXIT to Africa. I'm Tadre Delora Moignet, a California native living my best life in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope that you are informed, entertained, and inspired to BLAXIT to Africa. All right, let's dive into this new episode. But before we get into it, for those who are new, I just want to let you know if you see me glancing off to the side, it's because TT has to stay focused. I can go off on a tangent real easy, so I've got my notes here. And I've also got my tea here today. We've got Kenyan tea in the flavor of pineapple and mango. This is a good one. You know, something that has been circulating on the internets is this notion that the African Americans that are returning to Africa are failures. That's wild. Some folks is really just mean and cruel out on these internet streets, and they talking out the side of their neck, and they not doing no research, and it's just a really bad look. So I was like, you know what? Let's do an episode about this. Are the African Americans that are repatriating to Africa, are we failures? Let me offer you another perspective. We have a long history of African Americans seeking to control their own destiny and move away from the tyranny of U.S. governance and lynchings and genocide and just being relegated to the bottom class. Let me give you a little history. African Americans of the past that have migrated back to Africa, Maya Angelou, W.E.B. Du Bois. In fact, in Nairobi, we have a Du Bois Road. That's where you go to get all your little cheap cosmetics, bath and beauty products. I go down there to get my mama's Dove and Jergens lotions. You can get your costume jewelry down there, your wigs, your braiding hair. Stokely Carmichael, otherwise known as Kwame Ture, Paul Robeson, were they failures? I think not. African Americans of the present who are either living in Africa, have homes in Africa, or are planning to build homes in Africa. Ari Lennox, Gabrielle Union, Khalees. We've seen her all over the internet promoting East Africa. Samuel L. Jackson, Dave Chappelle, Boris Kojo. I even saw it. Where's that rapper that's like, oh, that rapper, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. Let me just Google it real quick. He be like, oh, rapper moving to Africa. Akon, Ludacris. Oh, shoot. Kendrick Lamar has a Move Africa project. Okay. Nas has investments. That's not who I'm looking for. Meek Mill. Oh my gosh. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Rick Ross. Oh my gosh. That's cringe. We're going to edit some of this out. Are these people failures? Listen, there are historical migratory patterns of Africans in the diaspora returning to Africa. Let me go through some of these because this is not something that we learn in school. It certainly wasn't a part of my curriculum, and I was a minor in African studies. This is something that you have to know. Somebody had to have told you. You maybe have read it somewhere, but for the regular Joe Schmoes that's just walking around, there's no way you would know this. So let me educate you. Here's a couple of new things that I've learned. The Agudas, the Afro-Brazilians in the 1830s, after the abolition of slavery in Brazil in 1888, moved back to Nigeria. Hello, you can see it in the architecture. Some people even have these Portuguese last names to this day. My Nigerian sisters told me about this. Afro-Cubanos in the late 1800s, after the abolition of slavery in Cuba in 1886, moved back to Africa, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. People think that Ghana is the only country that is giving citizenship to African descendants. Sierra Leone is also doing the same. I have lineage tied to Sierra Leone, what we now call Sierra Leone. I am also part Mende. So at some point, I will be going back to Sierra Leone to get my citizenship. Trust and believe. Now let's talk about African Americans specifically. We don't stop. Okay, the desire to control one's own destiny lives inside all of us, and African Americans are no different. Okay, we repatriated back to Liberia in the 1820s. In the 1960s and 1970s, spurred on by Pan-Africanists, Ghana's first president Kwame Nkrumah, we moved back to Ghana. Julius Nyerere over in Tanzania, right next door, left land for African returnees. It is still there to this day. I have seen it with my own eyes. Despite the fact that most of us are not descendants of East Africa. But he saw the vision and he empathized with us. And I mention this because there are also people on the internet that's like, y'all are not from East Africa. Why are y'all moving to East Africa? Y'all are West African. We have revolutionary leaders like Julius Nyerere, like, oh my gosh, Haile Selassie, who was like, nah, you are us and we are you, and come on home. Okay, now we got Haile Selassie, who had a vision that Africans return back to Africa. And he granted, 500 acres of land for us? We now know this area to be called Shashamane. I've also been there, had lunch there, delicious, saw it with my own eyes. Then in 1792, we moved back to what we now call Sierra Leone. Do you see a pattern here? What you're seeing right now, what we're calling BLAXIT, this is just the latest version of something we've been doing. Okay? Now, here we are in the 2000s. Some things have gone down that have made not just African Americans, but Americans, period, say, okay, this is enough. I don't know if this is for me. Some pivotal things that have happened in the 2000s that has specifically made African Americans want to seek another place to be. Because we are called human beings for a reason. Trump election in 2016. When that happened, I was living in the US and I tuned out of politics altogether. It was just, I said, if we as a nation can elect somebody like this, it's done. It's a wrap. I already was not watching the news for my mental health. This was a conscious decision. But I did not think that we could elect the likes of a Donald Trump in the 2000s. And we did. COVID happened in 2019. folks wanted to get out of the United States, a lot of people went over to Tanzania because that administration had these very loose COVID policies. There you could be free. The murder of George Floyd in 2020. That's another thing that just sent people spiraling. And I'm not even mentioning all of the other public lynchings. I can tell you when that was happening, I was calling in to work like nobody's business, just taking mental health days. It was maddening to me. At the time, I was working for an organization that prided itself in being radical. And they were sending water, free water to people in Flint, Michigan, because in Flint, Michigan, there was a water crisis. They were also giving out free memberships for healthy food. The organization I work for, I'm not going to say their name, but it's a tech organization where we had subscriptions where the belief was, or the motto was, healthy and whole foods for everyone. So we were sending subscriptions to people, free subscriptions to people in Flint, Michigan. What was it, Standing Rock in the Dakotas? I get the North and South Dakotas confused sometimes, where indigenous Americans were protesting, literally putting their lives on the line to stop this pipeline that was scheduled to come through their communities and disrupt their economies, disrupt their social fabric, and disrupt their environment. Went on for over a year, if I'm not mistaken. The organization that I worked for, they was sending them free food and also giving them free memberships, and also publicly stating that we stand with Standing Rock and Flint, Michigan. But for all the Black employees, at no point did they stand up and say that we support Black Lives Matter. Nobody pulled us over to the side and had a meeting with us and said, you know what, things are very stressful right now. We support you. I kept waiting for the memo. I kept waiting for the meeting. And they just kept waiting for us to show up unscathed and unbothered. Meanwhile, every 2 weeks, there was a public lynching of a Black person, government-sponsored lynchings by police officers. The way I just could not get out of bed on some days. These things that happened made life feel very tenuous for Black people. Some people had to get out by any means necessary. Now, I have to say that my day-to-day life at that time, living near the ocean in Los Angeles County, Marina Del Rey, Playa Del Rey, my life was pretty sweet. But the knowing that just next door in Compton, just next door in Watts, we were being targeted, it just really made me think, like, why am I here? I never planned on living my life in the U.S. I planned on living and working in Africa as part of my training, academically and professionally. Why am I here? The quest to be human. I think that's what we're really after. For the past couple of days, I've been looking out my window and I've been seeing these little Black boys, these little Kenyan boys, who are all under the age of 8, just playing. 8 to 11 of them at a time. They're playing soccer, they're roughhousing, hide and seek, whatever they're doing, just exploring. And it brings me joy because I'm like, they're not being hyper policed. Nobody has called the police on these little boys. Nobody has walked over to them and told them to shoot, to get along. Nobody has walked over to them and told them to be quiet, to tone it down. Where are your parents? Do you live here? Are you supposed to be here? What are you doing here? Nobody has harassed these babies. And God forbid, no adult has gone over, picked up an object, hit the children, picked up the child, body slammed the child. That did not happen. That has not happened here in Nairobi. And it's just, The fact that I even have to think like that is a testament to living life in America as a Black person. The way I have had to bring my head out the sand, come out of minding my own business to protect little Black boys in the United States that I didn't know. I'm minding my business and I see adults going over to little Black boys. Where'd y'all get them bikes from? Did y'all steal them bikes? Ho, 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 ho. Wait a minute. Do you know them? Have you talked to their parents? Where are your parents? Call your parents. Because this is not finna go down. Y'all not finna harass and terrorize these little boys and y'all adults. And they don't have no representation. I have not had to do that here. I live near the Arboretum. And sometimes I just marvel at the fact that it's a park full of Black people of all ages doing any and everything. Lovers, religious fanatics, praying to their God, corporates doing corporate bonding events, mothers going for walks with their babies in strollers, expats. Like it's just a swath of Black people being human. And I just marvel at it because I'm like, ain't nobody called the police. Nobody's being harassed. They're just being. And we all know in the United States, the police would have been called. First of all, we can't even get together in large groups without, how do I put this? Without certain white folks getting scared. We have a quest to be human. And the fact that there are some Africans talking out the side of their neck is very disheartening. Especially when some of these people are descendants of the very folks that had a hand in selling us into bondage. Ooh, did I step on somebody's toes? Everybody gets to define success for themselves. I was raised like damn near everybody else. Go to college, get a good job, get a corner office, start a business, get married, have kids, home, white picket fence, 2-car garage, a dog. That's pretty much the model of success that is just put upon us in the United States. And I'm so glad that more of us are waking up. How can there be one model for millions of people? Just one model? I saw this meme. It said, the more healed I become, the less ambitious I become. Ooh. The way that I am working on decolonizing my mind from being productive, as if the good Lord created me to come down here on planet Earth and work for other people and make other people money and make other people happy and comfortable. That's not why I'm here. For some people, success is living off grid. Not having an answer to nobody, growing your own food, doing what you want, doing what you want when you want. And as I'm decolonizing my mind and creating a life of ease, I'm realizing, who the hell came up with this 5-day work week? Ford, because it behooved him and the Ford Motor Company and his assembly lines and productivity. That's not how life used to be. And this is a relatively recent phenomenon. And somehow, as more and more nations began to get free, they looked to the United States economic model and patterned their economies and labor laws after the US. Don't look to us, because we only focus on productivity. We could give a damn about the human being that's laboring. For some people, success is being nomadic. I've met these people. Being in this nomadic space, I have met these people. They're some of the best people, brightest lights you ever want to meet. I mean, they're quirky as all get out. I met this guy who was just walking the planet. He had a social media following. His goal was to walk the planet. Sometimes he would hitch a ride on the back of a truck. But for the most part, he was walking the whole planet. I think I said in a previous episode, I hosted a guy who was just, for years, spreading love and giving hugs everywhere he went on the planet. I met a guy who has money, self-made millionaire, has investments in businesses, in real estate. But when you ask him, he says, I have no home. This man lives all over the world. One backpack. For him, that is success. Is he also a failure? For me, success is to just be. I wake up in the morning and I get to decide what I want to do with my day. That's success. Now, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, and I know my college mates probably be like, Lord, what is Tadre doing? Meanwhile, they heading up whole departments and companies, C-suite. If they like it, I love it. But that's not what I want to do. I opted out of the system very early. The amount of times I've had to tell my direct supervisor, I don't want your job, because they saw my potential. They had Googled me and seen what I had done in the past and literally asked me, why are you here? I just got this little job so I could concentrate on my bigger picture, which at that point in time was producing and hosting my web series. At one point, I fancied me a little Issa Rae. Didn't get there though, because my content, hey. However, my show was picked up. Am I making goo gobs of money off it? No. Am I able to pay my rent with that streaming income? No. But I can say that I'm happy that I did it. So for those of you who are just like speaking without a filter, keyboard warriors, at what point, how much should one endure before they say enough is enough? Before they get off the hamster wheel? Before they've had enough of the side effects of running in this rat race? Legit question. Anxiety attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, heart attacks, a myriad of autoimmune disorders, shorter telomeres, which equals shorter lifespans, no time for self, no time to think. This is life for African Americans in the US. Those who are very driven and those who are just really chilling. When is enough? I'm sitting over here at 50 and I'm looking at my age mates. Some of them have gone on due to autoimmune disorders, cancer. Well, cancer is an autoimmune disorder, but you get what I'm saying. Some of them are egregiously unhealthy. People look at me and they're like, oh my God, you're aging backwards. Okay, Benjamin Button. There's a reason why. I'm an anomaly amongst my peers. I'm very conscious about what I consume, and I don't go where I'm not wanted. when I used to interview and I would walk into a place and look around and see unhappy people, stressed out people, I don't care what the title is, how much money you want to give me. Oh, there's opportunity for growth. I'm not taking it. Nope. No, y'all not finna stress me out. There's a reason why I'm here. There's a reason why I am predominantly plant-based. So I asked the question again because I don't think I was clear. How much must one endure until they are ready to get off the hamster wheel? And are we going to condemn those people who have decided to opt out of the program? Get out of the matrix? People are tired and they want a different way of being. And to be perfectly clear, it's not just African Americans. The way Americans is moving to the Caribbean, Mexico, Colombia, okay, Portugal, and those of us who are of African descent, we really want to come back to Africa. However, a lot of people want to maintain a certain lifestyle. They want a certain infrastructure to be in place. And so they're opting that instead of moving to Africa, they're moving to Europe or Colombia or Mexico City, Costa Rica. Some people are even saying F it and moving to Cape Town. Cape Town is its own little bag of problems in regards to racial equity. So then I discovered that African Americans began to settle in Russia in the 1920s and 30s, looking for freedom from racial tyranny. They fancied a life where everybody was equal under this veil of communism. Langston Hughes was one of those people that visited and stayed for quite a time in Russia. Langston Hughes a failure? Social media has made it possible for us to see what we're missing out on. Before, you had to read a book. Before, you had to know somebody that knew someone, and then it was hearsay, and then it was like, well, how believable is that? Now, you can go on your pocket computer, and you can see people like myself living their best lives outside of the U.S. When we grew up, my generation, we grew up saying a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America every day before class. We were taught that the U.S. was the best country on the planet. Right? It was literally like its own planet in and of itself. Now we look on social media and we see that's really not the case. When you look at the mortality rate, the maternal mortality rates for African American women, dismal. Then you see somebody talking about, oh, I had my baby at a birthing center in Dubai. Oh, look at how I'm treated in Korea after giving birth in this birthing center in Korea. What? Then you begin to realize, oh, so I can get better treatment and pay less? Europeans be like, yo, what are y'all doing? I lived in Spain for a little while. They was like, are you okay? We're hearing about the American health system. It's crazy how much you guys pay to have babies, to be admitted in the hospital. How come you don't have more time off? Listen, the piss poor benefits. What is that benefit? Maternity leave. Have a whole human come back in 2 weeks. I worked with a woman. She was our receptionist, first job out of college, first job out of law school. We had a receptionist. She got pregnant, had her baby, came back, I want to say 2 days later, because she had no benefits. And a woman, African American, director of our department, was like, oh, girl, I really enjoyed my time off after I had my sons. knowing good and well she had the power to get that woman benefits. Just then I started traveling and meeting Europeans and like, what? Y'all get a whole month off. Unheard of. Unheard. Y'all get a whole month off every year and you have bereavement benefits, all these benefits that most Americans don't have. In terms of quality of life markers, the United States of America is at the bottom. We rank at the bottom in nearly every quality of life metric when compared to other wealthy nations. I recently found out maybe 2 years ago that the United States is the wealthiest country on the planet. I was like, huh? Really? How so? My dad was like, you ain't know that? I said, no, I did not know that. Because every time I asked for something, it seemed like it was a big deal. My daddy was like, well, you shouldn't ask for so much. Everybody doesn't have this existence of wealth in the U.S. I'm going to end with this. Everyone has a desire to control their own destiny. Africans want to be free of economic restrictions. African Americans, we want to be free of racial restrictions. And in that regard, we are actually very similar. We want the same things. We want freedom. And my hope for all of us, and the reason why I launched this podcast, is that we attain it, is that as a people, we all are able to self-actualize. Thank you for joining me on this episode of BLAXIT to Africa. If you like what you heard, please comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. May you thrive, may you be inspired, may you move with love and intention. Until next time.